Hello and welcome to Note by Note. I'm Tom Spencer, and this is a podcast about songs that I love. Songs that stop me in my tracks and remind me just how powerful music can be. Some of the songs we cover, they may be familiar to you, some might be brand new, but each one is worth slowing down and spending some time with. So let's jump into it. Today, I want to talk about the song Doomed by Moses Sumney. Some songs, when you first hear them, they smack you in the face. They hit you like a train. And some songs come at you a little slower. They don't rush to announce themselves. They just kind of settle into you. Doomed was definitely the latter for me. It wasn't one amazing poetic lyric that moved me or a big dramatic musical moment that drew me in. It was Moses Sumney's voice, this fragile, weighty thing that somehow feels like it's carrying an entire world all on its own. I first heard this song in an episode of the TV show Ted Lasso. Now, I know this is the second episode in a row where I'm covering a song that I found from a television show, and I promise this isn't going to be the Cool Songs from TV Shows podcast. That's not what this is. It just happens to be a coincidence, and this song is just too good to not talk about. Anyways, if you're unfamiliar with the show, it's about an American college football coach named Ted Lasso who moves to England to coach European football, or, soccer, in the Premier League. And just as a side note, if you haven't seen this show, go check it out. It's really excellent. So in the show, there's a character named Sam Obasanya, and he's a Nigerian soccer player that plays for Ted's team in London. The team is AFC Richmond. And earlier in this season, this is season 3 of the show, and in this episode specifically, he's spoken out about some political issues back home in Nigeria. And he's gotten on Twitter and he's spoken out about some political tensions between Nigeria and England. And now he's not doing this in like an attention-seeking way or anything. He's just using the platform that he has to voice his opinions and his concern. So also in this episode, as a side project and kind of an act of pride, he's opening a small Nigerian restaurant in London. And if you haven't seen the show, if you haven't connected the dots already, one day he's carrying a box to deliver to his restaurant. I think he got some new matchbooks that he's really proud of. And he walks in and he finds that it's been broken into. The glass in the door is smashed, and he walks in to find the place completely trashed. Broken glass, flipped tables. Along one wall, there are mirrors that it looks like someone took a hammer to them. And then up on the wall, spray painted in huge black letters, it says, "Shut up and dribble." As if to say, like, who are you to have an opinion about this? You're just a soccer player. Play your little game. Entertain me and stay out of it. It's a really heartbreaking moment. It's the kind of moment that it hits hard, not because it's loud, or rather, like, it is loud, but it's the silence that's so loud. It's such a tough moment. And kind of almost what makes it worse is Sam doesn't yell or break down. He just kind of stands in it and absorbs it all. And it's when he's walking in and he's standing there, that's when Doomed starts to play. It starts with these low brass notes, and then this calm but like aching voice comes in asking these questions. Am I doomed? Somehow it fit the moment perfectly. This soft voice carrying the heavy weight of these feelings and these questions. Ever since finding this song, it's become the track I reach for without thinking. It's the first thing I put on when I get in the car, and it's on repeat in my headphones. It's been that way for weeks. So today in this episode, I want to slow down with it to look at how a single voice asking a single question can feel this beautiful and this like unbearably heavy at the same time. During that Ted Lasso scene, before it even ended, I grabbed my phone immediately. I didn't even wait. I didn't want to lose it. I opened SoundHound and I let it listen because I knew whatever this song is, like, I needed to know. I needed to know right now. The first thing that caught me wasn't even the lyrics. It was the sound of those low, mellow brass notes. And as a brass player myself, I felt this instant pull. That feeling of like, oh, this is something special. When I finally gave the song a real listen, I was at the gym of all places, sitting on an exercise bike. I was going to do just a little warm up on the bike for a few minutes and then go do a workout. but instead I got completely lost in the song. I must have replayed Doomed like 5 or 6 times in a row, barely pedaling, just letting Moses Sumney's voice wash over me, taking it all in. The workout stopped. It was gone. Everything else kind of faded. It was just me and the song and this feeling of discovery and awe. What lingers for me after that Ted Lasso scene isn't anger or even shock. It's this feeling of emptiness, almost hopelessness. You can feel Sam's despair in that moment, not because he's falling apart, but because he isn't. He's just standing there, absorbing it all with nowhere to go. And when Moses comes in singing, "Am I Doomed?" it doesn't feel like a dramatic cry. It feels honest and raw and introspective. The full line in the song is, "Am I vital if my heart is idle? Am I doomed?" And I feel that those lines, they might hit different depending on where you are in your life. For me personally right now, I don't hear them as some big catastrophic spiral. I hear them as these smaller, like quieter doubts. Like, am I doing anything that actually matters? Am I showing up the way I want to? Am I living in a way that feels awake and present? The way he sings those questions, it makes them feel less like a crisis and more like a conversation. The kind you only have with yourself when it's quiet, when you stop scrolling on your phone for a minute and actually let yourself think. You know, when you're alone in the car or lying awake in bed longer than you mean to. And what makes the questions unsettling is that outside of the context of the show, there's no obvious reason for it. In Ted Lasso, you understand exactly why Sam might be feeling and asking it. The world has just given him a very clear reason to feel defeated. But in the song itself, when you're just listening to it on your own, the question turns inward. You can't help but reflect on your own shortcomings, your own doubts, the part of you that wonders if it's enough, even when nothing is obviously wrong. At its core, the question isn't really, am I doomed? To me, it's more like, am I going to make it through this? Can I go on? Am I too far gone? And what gives the song its power is that it never answers that question. If it did, if it wrapped everything up in like a little bow, it reassured you and gave you some kind of resolution, it would stop working completely. It would feel cheap and shallow, like a bad sitcom ending, all wrapped up and tidy in a 22-minute episode. Leaving the question unanswered is what makes it feel real and raw and true. And the way Moses holds that question, the way he refuses to resolve it, it's not just in the lyrics, it's in the music itself. One of the first things that really struck me when I sat down with the studio version of Doomed from the album Aromanticism is just how slow it is. And it's not just slow in the sense of tempo, although it is, it's slow in the way it feels too. It's like disconnected from time altogether. It's free and elastic. And it's actually hard to get a clean read on what the tempo is. If you try to tap along with a metronome, I did, it keeps slipping away from you. It never quite locks in. There's no pulse to grab onto. That's especially noticeable if you're familiar with the 2 other versions of this song. I mostly listened to the version from the album Live from Black Alacia. This is the one in the Ted Lasso scene, the brass opening. And this performance, it sits at around like 65 beats per minute. Pretty slow song. And then there's a live in-studio radio station version on YouTube that it's in the same range, about 65 beats per minute. But this one even adds like a pulse and a beat that gives the song something to lean on, like a sense of forward motion. We'll come back to this one later because that's actually my favorite version of the song. But the studio version, this one tops out at closer to only 55 or 56 beats per minute. And that difference matters. It's only 10 clicks slower, but it feels enormous. Because here, there's nothing really pulling the song forward. Again, there's no drums, no pulse, nothing insisting that time move on. Instead, it just kind of exists. The ensemble itself is incredibly sparse too. It's just Moses' voice and a low synth, something that sounds kind of like an organ, but it's really warm. It's not like the synth in the last episode I did, the Francis and the Lights song. Whereas that synth felt like bright and almost glassy, this one has a real warmth to it. And so that's just it. It's his voice and this synth. And the synth here doesn't behave the way you might expect the harmonic instrument of the song to behave. It doesn't push the song anywhere. It doesn't mark time. It just rises and falls slowly. It's like an ocean swell, but in slow motion. It's not a wave that's crashing. It's just coming in and going out. Not dramatic, just very gentle, coming and going. That motion, or really the lack of directional motion, it becomes kind of the emotional engine of the song. The synth isn't leading Moses, and it's not supporting him in the traditional sense either. At times, it feels like it's meeting him halfway. There are moments when Moses will hold a note, and the synth comes in underneath and almost takes over, swelling so fully that it feels less like accompaniment and more like a duet. Like the voice and the synth, they share the spotlight together. And what's interesting is how little that relationship changes over the course of the song. The harmony doesn't travel far. The texture stays pretty consistent. Instead of evolving through progression, the song, it kind of breathes. And then you actually hear that literally too. At the end of each section, at the end of the first verse, the first chorus, and the end of the second verse, there's this echoed breath sound. It's subtle, but once you notice it, it's impossible to unhear. It's like the song exhaling between thoughts of the bigger sections. Rather than using big musical transitions to mark the form, the song almost lets these breaths signal that something has ended and something else is about to begin. The structure isn't announced, you just feel it. Halfway through the second verse, another texture does come in, this charged, almost wind-like sound. It's not the same wind that you hear in the KEXP performance later on. Again, I'll talk about that in a minute. This wind sound in the studio version feels more electronic, like pressure building rather than actual real weather sounds. And again, it doesn't rush. It just slowly occupies more and more space and fills the room, but never becomes overwhelming. Then in the second chorus, finally a new instrument appears, a background vocal, almost like a choir singing an ah syllable. It's supportive and present and emotional, but it's still restrained. Even when this enters, it doesn't escalate the song. It doesn't raise the stakes. It just adds another layer of human presence. The whole entire song, it feels like it's happening underwater. Everything is slightly slowed. The attacks are softened. Edges are really blurred. The song, it's incredibly simple, but that simplicity it's doing a lot of work. By taking away anything that might move it forward, the song forces you to sit inside the question that it's asking. And then I love how the song ends. There's a moment where it genuinely feels like the song is over. The synth, it runs through the chord progression again, one last time on its own, and it feels like closure. Like the question has been asked, lived with, and then we moved on. But then Moses comes back in one last time, and he sings, "Am I vital? If my heart is idle, am I doomed?" again. And this time, he lets himself stretch a bit. The melody loosens. He adds some gentle, melismatic figures, allowing the line to breathe in a way like it hasn't before. And on the word doomed, he holds the final consonant, that M, until it dissolves into this soft vocal fry. And he releases the tension, not dramatically, but in the smallest way with the ED in doomed. All you hear is the soft vocal click of him releasing the word. And that's it. The song doesn't answer the question. It doesn't rise to meet it. It just holds it and then lets it go. And all of that, the slowness, the absence of the pulse, the breathing form, the restraint in the voice, it's not accidental. It's the music mirroring the lyrics, staying with the question instead of trying to answer it. And what's really interesting is that Moses Sumney has talked about how difficult it was to take songs like this, songs built on softness, quiet, and restraint, and bring them into a live setting. In an interview, he was asked if that was a challenge. And he said, yeah, it's been quite challenging because I think the challenge of the record is often an emphasis on softness or quietness. And I'm personally a big fan of a dynamic live show. So taking these songs, which are very bare on the record, and breathing new life into them, making them punch in the face, has been a challenge, but a really, really fun challenge. And you can feel that challenge most clearly in one particular live performance, my favorite version of this song, actually, an in-studio session from KEXP. KEXP is a station in Seattle that specializes in indie music, and it really champions local artists. And it's a place where I do a lot of music discovery. What I love about the KEXP live version of Doomed is that you can actually watch the song get built right in front of you. They're in the in-studio performance space that they call the live room. It's a dark, enclosed space with these soft string lights hanging from the ceiling, and they glow all around them all the time. And even though this is a live radio performance, the dark room and the low lighting, it makes it feel really intimate, like you're getting a peek behind the curtain rather than watching an actual performance. And the song, it doesn't start with the band, it doesn't start with a chord. It starts with Moses tapping a rhythm directly into the microphone. He's literally creating the drums for the song by hand, like tapping a steady beat, but leaning into certain hits, just enough to make him feel off-center and not rigid. It's syncopated and it breathes. The groove becomes the foundation for everything else that follows, and it never leaves. And while that's happening, you can see him adjusting knobs and shaping the sound there in real time, even crouching down to tweak a foot pedal on the floor at one point. Then a saxophone enters, but it's not really a saxophone. It's one musician, but he's playing and looping himself, stacking notes until what started as a single line, it suddenly sounds like a full chord. He plays into the loop and then plays against it, adding texture and adding weight. And before you really notice what's happening, it sounds like a whole choir of saxophones, even though it's still just one person in the room. And then all of that drops out. The moment Moses starts singing, the sax disappears entirely, and what's left is his voice and that mic-tapped rhythm, and a keyboard that he's playing, just one note at a time. No flourishes or fills, nothing complicated. He's just simply laying out the harmonic skeleton of the song, letting the chords exist in their simplest form, just one note. Visually, Moses stays mostly inward the entire time, looking down at the keyboard or fiddling with a knob or leaning into the mic. There's very little eye contact with the room, which somehow makes the performance feel even more focused. He's so dialed into his performance and the song. When the chorus arrives, the sax comes back in, but now it feels different, less organic and more processed, more electronic. You're hearing the loop again, but filtered and reshaped. A guitar enters too, barely announcing itself, just a single, gentle strums. Everything sits under the vocals. Nothing competes with it. The whole performance feels very like sotto voce, quiet and restrained, very deeply controlled. By the second verse, the guitar steps forward a bit more. It starts to provide rhythm, but still lightly, like almost cautiously. And as the verse unfolds, that guitar, it begins looping over itself too. And each pass, it adds a little more density until eventually it stops sounding like a guitar at all and turns into this wash of sound. It's subtle, but it's beautiful. And visually, Moses changes here too. His right hand starts moving freely in the air as he sings, while his left hand stays locked on the keyboard, holding that structure still in place. The second chorus mirrors the first, sax, guitar, voice, but now the guitar behaves differently. The strum fades in and out, like so gently that you barely hear the attack. You don't hear the strings being hit, you just hear the chord existing. And it's around here that another element sneaks in. This soft, almost imperceptible wind-like sound, but much more organic and weather-like than the wind from the studio version. At first, it feels very ambient, just something in the background, but it keeps growing slowly and patiently. And now midway through this section, Moses, he also starts adding like a real heavy reverb to his voice. Again, live right there on stage. You can see him adjusting the effects as he sings. His voice expands outward, filling more space, but without getting any louder. The whole ensemble grows together here in this really organic way. There's a short instrumental interlude, no vocals, and then this is where everything really swells. The sax layers, that guitar wash, the rhythm, the wind, the sound all kind of accumulates. And then Moses cuts everything at once, except the wind. And what's interesting is it doesn't sound like the bottom drops out. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like the wind came in and like swallowed everything up. On its own, it suddenly feels massive and overwhelming. Like it was always there, just waiting underneath the music. And then silence. He cuts the wind completely, and the song returns back to its most like delicate form. Just the soft fading in and out guitar and his voice. At the very end, Moses lets himself play a bit more. He stretches the melody, adding these melismatic improvisations again, small runs, subtle variations, just enough to remind you how much in control he's been and how much he's been holding back maybe this entire time. And the song closes the way it began, calm, unhurried, perfectly balanced. The voice, the guitar, they fade out together, neither of them trying to have the last word. When Doom ends, I don't feel resolved. I don't feel uplifted. What I feel is just kind of steady. Like I've been sitting with something heavy, and instead of being crushed by it, I've just been allowed to hold it for a while and sit in it. There's something comforting about that, about a song that it doesn't rush to reassure you or tell you that everything's going to be fine. It just stays with the question and somehow makes the question feel less lonely. If this song is new to you, I really recommend spending time with it in a few different forms. Start with the studio version on the album Aromanticism. Let it move at its own pace, then listen to the live from Black Alacia version. And then go to YouTube and watch the KEXP performance. Not because it's bigger or better, but because it shows what happens when something quiet is allowed to take up a little bit more space. That's what keeps me coming back to this song. It doesn't demand anything from me. It doesn't try to fix anything. It just sits there asking one honest question and trusts me to meet it where I am. So that's going to do it for me on this one. If this song means something to you or if it's brand new, I'd love to know what you hear in it and where it meets you. So thanks for listening. I'll see you next time for another song.